welcome. Tonight, we're going to try and discuss these info sessions that not necessarily that I'm planning, and maybe I need to clarify how and what is going on with this road user info session. Now, firstly, thank you for joining me. Thank you for tuning in. I've purposefully left this unlisted to try again something different. And yeah, it will become inevitable somewhere down the line, maybe 2025, when I start moving into live streaming again or the drag racing. Maybe, given the recent issues and problems, etc. So, what I wanted to do was just have a discussion around this proposed info session and what it's meant to be, what the point of it is, what the end game is, if you will, who it's meant to benefit. Ideally it's meant to benefit everyone, just to clarify, but the idea in a sense is aligned with my concept, what it is that I want to achieve within the project. It was actually a concept brought up by the partner themselves, not necessarily me. I liked it because, like I said, it was well aligned. There are some concerns which I had and I thought of and I considered, and I thought to myself, well, I'm hoping there's transparency here. That's all you can do. You have to give it a chance. And if there's an agenda, some nefarious reason, and that comes out, then so be it. But out of good faith, I have to give it the opportunity. I mean, I don't know these individuals. They are obviously an established business. I cannot believe rather, that they would agree to do something, come on board with the purpose of utilizing the information elsewhere down the line to their benefit or for a narrative. Everything is possible, and that's where this early engagement is meant to happen. So I hope the microphone is loud enough tonight that there's no issues. I hope that there can be some engagement. And let's try and figure out, the best for this info session. So what it's meant to take the form of is literally, if you guys have been in the car industry for a while, I mean like a real while. I don't know about dyno days recently. I know there is one coming up. VAD is hosting one in November. Out in the Brackenfell area, I'm not too sure, but I'll get the flyer, I'll post it, and I'll share it if you are interested in that. It will take the form of that somewhat. We're going to have a handful of cars, and we're going to roll them over the pit, in a sense. And the team is going to assess the vehicle under the same conditions, in the pit, checking the suspension, checking that all the suspension components are functioning. Not necessarily that they are improper or proper, but that they are functioning. So it's irrelevant if you've got cut springs or sleeve overs, or your coilovers are turned down on their max, or you've got bags, or you've got tempered springs, or you've got a mix of those. So a tempered cut spring that's with a sleeve over. Lord forbid, I'd love to see one of those rock up. But just to give you insight on the risks of the state of that component, you know, the issues in terms of wear and tear, bushings failing, possibly bolts and not shearing because of the excess load. So if you look at, for argument's sake, a lower control arm, its job is fairly straightforward. It goes up and down. Right? For lack of a better understanding, that's what it does. You've got sway bars, you've got ball joints, you've got all these other components, and some cars possibly have many doing a similar function. Double wishbones, and all these other components that form your suspension, from the damper or the shock to the spring to any number of things. Looking at the front, looking at the rear, not necessarily checking your subframes or checking your steering rack, because like I said, it's not a roadworthy. It's literally just for the guys to understand, as their vehicle is there, is it okay? And that's a very vague sort of thing to focus on, because we're not saying your vehicle is roadworthy. We're not saying your vehicle isn't roadworthy. You're not saying your vehicle is approved or authorized by us or any individual or the organization for road use, for you to use that if you get pulled over, for argument's sake. But it's to try and empower you and inform you, with regards to the rules of the road. What is acceptable, maybe? Checking your car to make sure it's functional. So, as my partner said, he's gonna check that it's solid. So it's very weird to try and figure out the term that we're gonna use here to convey, because there's no roadworthy report. There is a slip that you're going to get that's gonna highlight the concerns, and it's gonna say, this is something you should look at and maybe sort out. It's not something we can tell you to sort out. It's your car. It's not here under the premise of a roadworthy. It's here to partake in a session for us to help you understand possibly why you're being pulled over. So ideally, I'd look for, or I'd like to have someone that, or a group of individuals that constantly get harassed by law officials, Metro, law enforcement, LEAP, SAPs maybe. I mean, I had SAPs pull me over. What they know about a car, only they know. So to me, my only engagement should be from a vehicle roadworthy point of view, traffic, or provincial, or the ghost squad. Not LEAP, not law enforcement, not Metro. I mean, law enforcement deals with bylaws. Metro, they're like a mishmash love child between law enforcement and traffic in my mind. So they kind of exert, some muscle when there's a bit of a checkpoint, if you will. There's no formal roadblock, but they're just standing on the side. They're checking, vehicle, license, disc. It's fine, your license, and then that's it. And if they notice alarms there, it's explain. You probably get a fine, that kind of thing. I don't know what LEAP. LEAP is meant to be like your foot soldiers, Shredder's foot soldiers from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. those guys. And literally just to not help you through those encounters, but to highlight for you, this is why they're giving you hassles, you know. For road use, set your suspension here. When you get to your meetup, then, you know, drop it as much as you want. I mean, there was a guy that I would have loved to have in the session that's got a bagged 350Z, and everyone may know him. I think he's sold that vehicle now. But, you know, he took his air suspension out and he put regular springs and a damper or coilovers in, one of the two, because of, you know, just the annoyance. Now, what that particular annoyance was, you know, he didn't really quite elaborate, but it was around the attention, the unwanted attention that he got. So he specifically said he drives around normally. When he gets to an event, he airs out. Now, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, the vehicle is standing still. So the session is meant to help him to say, well, what you're doing is 100% correct. So now let's go and have a look under the vehicle and assess what is actually going on. You know, what is the operating parameters of the air suspension? There's obviously a range. There should be a range. It shouldn't be something that was installed to such a degree that the components are under least strain when the vehicle is aired out, and it's under the most strain when the vehicle is running at normal heights. That wouldn't make sense. But weirder things have happened. So that's the gist of it. To just give people not ammunition, not something to argue, just information so that they can be informed when they are in those situations. If a cop tells you, yeah, your car's too low, and you can ask them, you know, what is low? What does that mean? You know, in my mind, and I've made it a point of not engaging with the partner for this, because I also want to go into it somewhat fresh. And it's impossible for me because I'm most likely going to be asked questions by you guys. And it's going to be really weird if I don't have answers for you guys. So that's really what it's supposed to be, to give you some kind of safety net. To ask those questions, not argue, but ask those questions. Why do you say my vehicle is low, sir? And hopefully they don't show you three fingers. That's going to annoy me to no end. If they show you three fingers and say, oh yeah, you know, if the vehicle, I can't fit my three fingers between the arch and the tire, your vehicle's low. Now, if you're running a stretch tire and your arch as you're driving is still touching the tire, then that's got to be damn low. I mean, there's a certain height, and that reason for that height is the obstacles in the road. And it's not necessarily for your safety. I mean, I'd like to think that the city has these requirements and the traffic laws have these requirements to, you know, for your safety, but it's really just for infrastructure safety, for the safety of pedestrians, for the safety of you know, incidents, that everyone in general is taken care of. I mean, if your vehicle is 30 millimeters from the road surface, you are literally scraping the road. First pothole you're going to hit is game over for you. Literally. It's game over for you if that pothole is deeper than 30 millimeters. I doubt you getting out of that pothole. If your tire can extend into that pothole and you get that knock, you're going to get more than a knock. And I mean, I think there was a video of a guy who got stuck on a speed bump, some Honda EK. Now, city's perspective is most likely from that. They're not interested in, you know, your property being preserved or being unharmed or undamaged or whatever the case may be. And those are the questions you're going to be asked, or things you're going to be told. Your vehicle's too low. Why is it low? What's the purpose? And you're not going to get much detail other than that. But the reality is, if your car is low, the issue in my mind is the ability to control that vehicle. So your ability to steer. You're driving along merrily, like your arches are on the rim, over the tire face, the tire wall, on the rim. Can you steer? Now, I don't mean change lanes, because that's a slight adjustment on the wheel and slight correction. I mean, if someone ran in front of you right now, could you steer out of the way and avoid the collision? If a vehicle stopped right in front of you, or suddenly peak traffic was up ahead and bam, from 120 you need to slow, can you steer to get out of the way, possibly into the shoulder, into a different lane? That's the logic that's going on in my head. And if I can do that, then my vehicle's not too low. Because what is low? I mentioned this before. The cops use 3 fingers. That's not set in stone. That's just measure with this. So it could be your index finger, your ring finger, and your middle finger. It hopefully is your pinky finger, your ring finger, and your middle finger. That whole Honda Boys pink stink vibe. So that's going to be the one point. Is the vehicle too low? No, if I can steer normally, full lock, left to right to full lock, what's the problem? There's no touching. If you may be running a narrow tire and there's clearance between the tire, the face of the rim, and your arch, enabling you to steer. So from the side, you plat gesak, as they say. But you're able to steer, then there's no issue. I mean, if your vehicle is low in the rear, I'd be aspirous. I'd lower the vehicle in the rear. And up front, almost like a lowrider type vibe, with the front facing up and the rear bottoming out. But that then brings the point. How is your vehicle going to handle over uneven surface? How's it going to respond to changes in the road dynamic? You take a turn and you maybe catch a curb where the road is sort of leaning for stormwater drainage. I mean, there's one exercise where the guys overseas somewhere fixed the suspension. It was not forgiving. There was no give. I think it was welded in plate, or they replaced the spring and the damper with just a solid rod, or whatever they did. And that thing was hopping on the road, bouncing literally on and off the surface. Now imagine at speed. There's no way you're going to have control over that vehicle. So is that the reason that they're arguing? That they don't even realize why they're arguing as officers? Only they know. And we'll figure out, if I ever get the audience with JP Smith and maybe Adrian Long and maybe Officer Williams, that was so adamant that we can't race on the road, all those guys. But that's just one aspect of this info session. In my mind, that, and how and is that impacting on the suspension on your car? Is there a bolt that looks like it's coming undone? Are your bushes worn? Now, the lower control arm, that just facilitates movement of the components up and down. It's somewhere for them to attach to, and it enables not free movement, but just the motion in relation to its function. Would be the easiest way to explain it. and your bars are just there to facilitate this stiffness and this sort of just an improved sense of handling, and maybe not a sense actual handling, depending on the product you get. A 50 rand bar is not going to equate to an adonized, billet, beautifully cut, that's meant to be firm and aiding in your movement through winding roads or on a mountain pass or on a circuit that's got a lot of slaloms and S-bends and whatever the case may be. So it's gonna cover that. It's gonna cover, not necessarily checking your brakes, but maybe we could check the discs for fissures. We could check the function of the brakes and tell you, look, it's not something a cop can see, but there's a problem with the function of your brakes, and that's just maintenance. When last did you change pads? When last did you, and when you change pads, did you change the disc? The disc might have been warped. Did you have it skimmed? Did you replace the disc? Did you replace the disc and not the pad? All these things are possibilities. I mean, we don't know the maintenance that people conduct on their vehicle at home, if at all. And things like, the LEDs. Now, there's been a lot of sort of uptake recently with people switching over to these. There's a lot of content showing guy prepping these items for this vehicle and bam. But now you've got on the other end of the scale individuals saying these LEDs add no value to your ability to see. They look cool. From the outside, you take a photo of your car, your lights are bright. You're blinding the person that's oncoming. You're blinding the people that you're driving behind. But if you check the visibility, you actually cannot see the road with those lights. And you don't notice that because there's road lights. But given the energy demands, it's interesting because we haven't had load shedding for a long time. But there are sections of road where the lights are just off at night. These are things that we need to assess because it is an accusation or an allegation regards the product and against the product that it doesn't work. And we need to assess that. But you're going to get, from a station's point of view, you're going to get the input so you can go and decide. You know what? You've got LEDs. The problem with this is X, Y, Z. It's for you to decide now. We're not going to fail you or give you a roadworthy certificate to the contrary or whatever the case may be, or in support of. It's just going to be noted. Now, I mean, if there's any other thing that you would want to be checked, that you've had a vehicle for 20 years nearly. You bought a Golf 5 when it came out in 2005. That was a car you wanted. That's a car you have. The car's got amazingly maybe low mileage, 200,000 Ks. You service it regularly at VW. You maybe took it to power flow for an exhaust, a bit of a catback exhaust, just for noise. Now it's well into its life. You've done maybe major things, tensioner. The chains and the cams are pretty bad on those. They tend to go if there's an issue with the high pressure fuel pump, and that can't get to the name now, but it's like a cup that the pump pounds against the cam for its operation. Cam follower. There we go. You've been through one or two of those. Those are nasty when they break. And now you maybe want to do a turbo back exhaust. Most people here just do a decat. Sometimes they even just cut the catalytic converter out. Sometimes the oaks are boofing you and they empty your cat and they weld it shut, and then there you go, because they've given you a cat fooler or whatever the case may be with a tune. And maybe you want to know if that's okay, or is that affecting your vehicle because, maybe you have started running into issues. You may be going through coil packs like crazy. Um, you're welcome to raise all of those things. And, things like you've now fitted this exhaust, and it's not necessarily a roadworthy item because noise is no longer an issue for roadworthy, noisy vehicles. So maybe I'd like to see one or two noisy vehicles there. Other hidden things, I'd need to get the business to list and detail them, but those are the three main things: the suspension, um, the LED lights, the hidden matters in relation to the suspension, maybe. Just want to see if there was any other points, but those are the main three. And that's really what the session is going to be about. We're going to take a car over a pit, check those few things, and then say to you, okay, we've noted this. This is solid. I'm not going to say okay. Your car is okay. Your car is good. But the matters aren't necessarily okay. And what that means is you've now done these suspension changes. You've now fitted these additional bars to the rear of your EK Honda. And some of it's for looks and functionality and for weight saving and all these things. But you know what? Here's a crack here. There's something weird. There's play. There shouldn't be play, for argument's sake. And you've got LED lights in, everywhere. Indicators, headlights, brake lights, reverse lights, all these things. And they're really not functioning as intended to allow you to see where you are driving and to allow another individual to see you coming, but not so much to blind them, which serves no purpose because you can't see where it is you're going. I mean, that's generally the main gist of this. And I like the concept because it aligned with what I needed them for, to do pre-scrutineering for events. Now, on the flip side, the concern that I've obviously noted and that I've had a few echo, which got me to review it further, is there's a lot of matters that city and government is trying to push through and get approval for. And I mean, in case you don't know, and I didn't either, trucks and buses and all commercial vehicles and heavy vehicles, when they renew their license, they need to come for roadworthy. Now, that's something we don't have to do as civilians. Private vehicles, we're just going to renew our license every year. And if that, that's already an issue for most of us. And the concern is that, things could be used against us. And I suppose there's some paranoia in that. It's not a concern that we can overlook because it is a possibility. And I'd like to think that we are dealing transparently. No, but there's a risk here for me because people are then going to say, but you were in bed with him and you brought this. That's a risk I have to take. But at the end of the day, on some level, I have to agree with certain individuals. Things are always about safety. I don't want to be bulleting down the N1 testing, which is wrong of me. And then suddenly, a shock mount shears. And it shears on the shock. So where the shock is mounted at that bushing, it's still fast, but the shock sheared. So now I'm going to have this excess play and movement at speed. It could result in anything happening. The vehicle could roll, lose control, flip, roll, whatever the case may be. I'd want to know. from that point of view. And like I said, the Golf that was bought in 2005 and transferred to your name from the bank in 2010, that didn't need a roadworthy. That vehicle never saw a roadworthy. That's a reality. And there are vehicles out there that people bought new, you know, that a clean bill of health, it's maintained. Once it's out of warranty, then it gets maintained to a very different standard, which may or may not be worse than under and in warranty service standards. We don't know. Sometimes you hear and see things and you tell the mechanic, hey, just check that out for me, please. And you tell the mechanic, check the car entirely. Maybe they incorporate taking it to a roadworthy station to check for you. I don't know. That would maybe be a good step in terms of the maintenance. I mean, I do certain things with the maintenance of my vehicles, and for me, I may very well go to a roadworthy station. Just check this for me, please. Knowing that I don't need to worry with a roadworthy because I've been through it. I mean, I've been through that scenario where a car is bought new, and once it's paid up, it's mine. So I don't need to do a roadworthy. I hardly sell. But there was one instance where a vehicle was bought under the business name and had to be transferred out of the business name. So now I needed to get a roadworthy. I made my way down to the station, coming for the roadworthy. I mean, the car is sound, it's maintained. It's maintained by a dealership. Car fails roadworthy, believe it or not. And I'm standing there all confused. And I get told, well, there's oil on the undercarriage, so this car must be leaking. And that's environmentally, I suppose. And then the other reasons, that's a concern. So that's one. The headlights are not clear, because the light has faded in the sun. So that's a problem. There were two other things where there was a light that wasn't functioning, so that a bulb needed to be fitted. So I say, okay. I mean, it's annoying things. It's simple things. Otherwise, everything else was technically working. So all I did was I had to pay for the roadworthy. I went to a car wash, had them polish up the lights. I went to another car wash that could do undercarriage cleaning, and they cleaned the undercarriage. And, went and got some bulbs at the dealer and had that fitted. Went back to roadworthy and they passed the car. Didn't pay again. I mean, already paid. Bring it back within a set amount of days, sort these issues out, and there you go. If that's the case now, I don't know. So that's something we could check. But it's entirely up to you, to let me know. And you can put in the chat, you can get into the WhatsApp group, you can pick any number of ways you want to engage. And, see from there. I mean, it's about you. It's not really about me. And it's a first, so I'd be keen to see what happens, and then from there how it grows and goes. And it's really just to give you guys the information so you can make better decisions, informed decisions. I mean, I used the scenario before, and I said in a meeting, and I said, here's Brandon and his family. And he uses the train, his wife uses the bus, she takes the kids to school, and then tomorrow he takes the kids to school, and it's a back and forth, and it's public transport, and it's uncomfortable, and you must leave early, and you got to walk to get to that, and the risks in all of that, you don't have your own space. So he decides he's going to buy a car. He goes down Voortrekker Road, he finds something that's within his budget. He doesn't have a license. They sell him the car. No license needed. Can you afford the car? Yes, they'll sell you the car. There you go. And he's happy. His family have, as a riding. They now go to wherever He uses it to drop them at school. They drop the kids, drops the wife, he goes to work. Now they're trading. For him, it becomes work because he's now the driver. Everyone else is still passengers, but it's their own enclosed space. So for him, it's a trade-off, the one for the other. He's now got control over his family's space. They are safe. He's happy with his choice, all these things. But he doesn't have a driver's license. A year goes by and the license renewal lapses. And he just carries on. You know, he's done something good, but he doesn't understand the implications of what he's not done. There it's a roadblock. So now that they're near, your license is expired, almost 2 years. Where you don't even have a driver's license. ID number, please. Pick up. He didn't even get a driver's license. He can drive. He's maybe driving since not two, 8 or 9. But you get my point. He's been driving for a long time. So what they're gonna teach him in his mind? But he may be driving poorly. He may not be indicating when he changes lanes. He may be braking. He's braking and then he's indicating. So I'm the doors in a bakkie behind him. Or I'm in a little sub-segment category A car or super mini. And this oak just brakes. Then too, he has no brake lights. And then he indicates he's turning left. Or even worse, I assume he's turning left and he's actually turning right. Accident. Not actually. Negligence. Not so much an accident. But he's never had a driver's license. He's never gone through the motions of understanding the rules of the road. Because the reality is, it's a privilege to drive on the public road. As hard as that is a pill to swallow, that is the fact. It's not your right to drive on the road. I mean, if you're a pedestrian, it's your right to walk on the pavement. Not to walk in the road, not to jaywalk, not to walk diagonally across a road and saunter across because hulle kan wag. That's my people. And it's not just this one demographic, it's a lot of people. I mean, your people approach a pedestrian, they just walk because it shows them there's a pedestrian crossing. But you stop before you enter the road and you make sure it's clear because right of way is for the driver. If you've done that and it's clear and you walk into the road and a car approaches, then the road rule applies that they need to give you the right of way. But if you just walked into the road and I knock you, heart is for you, brother. Heart is for you, sister. And we will argue that. That's why I drive with a dash cam. I mean, you'll get people doing the dumbest things because they're not aware. They're not aware of their surroundings. They are mindless. They need to be more mindful. Walking and texting. So they're not even looking where they're walking. Next minute. How many times have you seen it? People walk into poles, trees, other people get knocked, die, whatever the case may be. These sessions are meant to help those individuals understand what they're doing wrong, why they're doing it wrong, where they need to go take corrective measures, what needs to be done, who they need to speak to, and hopefully how to go about doing it. The order, the sequence. Everything has a sequence. And sometimes what you think is the best way is not even the right way. So yes, you achieve your goal, but you've done it. That's unacceptable. In a way that's unacceptable. So there's a lot, to think about and a lot to do. But this road user info session, in a nutshell, is that a handful of cars, maybe 16, of varying degrees. Like I said, cut springs, tempered springs, sleeve overs. Hopefully not a combination of those three. Coilovers, air, stock standard suspension. We might even find that, the standard suspension is a problem. I mean, not all cars are perfect. Not all manufacturers products are good in the long term. It's good for passing a standard now new, but wear and tear probably wears and tears poorly. You could have been better off buying a 5,000 rand more expensive vehicle and not had these issues. We don't know that unless someone's been the guinea pig, someone suffered through that, and now you come along and you go, oh, okay, I see someone had an issue. No, I want to buy a car that's going to last me for 10, 20, 30 years. That's maybe the mindset of some people. And is that possible? Depends with maintenance. This is consumables. There's tires, brakes, shocks, batteries, exhaust, air filter, oil filter. Depending on how poor a fuel filter your car runs, for petrol, you might be better off actually checking that as well if your vehicle's underperforming. So if you run a diesel, you need a diesel filter at every service. So, how well have you maintained your vehicle to be able to come to the session and be confident and say you should not find a single thing? And if they do, then you've got bigger questions to go and ask the people maintaining your vehicles. You might find that we uncover things where you will build 6,000 rand for changes, and we go, oh, what changes? These are all rubber bushes. You just said you got polyurethane throughout, for argument's sake. So it should be an all positive thing. Me being me, I can see some caveats where things could go a bit problematic down the line. What do we do? We've got to make the call. So, this is just one aspect of, and like I said, it's a concept brought forward and raised by the partner to say that, he wants to do this because he sees so many guys caught up in simple matters that, for argument's sake, 1 or 2 clicks, cop can't really give you hassles for that. Because we're in this gray area where, our argument as consumers is, but it was sold to me by a store that has a shop front, which is, legally allowed to operate. So how is this stuff illegal? We've got the government that benefited, and we've raised this so many times. People have raised it in a lot of chats and lives. Parts are being imported by businesses through this BRICS agreement. So Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. It affords those companies probably a much easier trade than other countries. Not companies, countries. Much easier trade than perhaps other countries. So the import duties might be less, which means it's cheaper for us to get that, which means they get more business. We get more probably inferior product. But it secures their economy as the sellers, and it maybe secures our economy as the buyers because we get sold that product and we choose that instead of a more expensive Tain product or Eibach or H&R, etc. But the lifespan of that cheaper product might be significantly less. One heavy knock on one of our roads, and we've got so many ruts and bumps and things. Maybe it deforms. It's made with inferior quality materials for that spring, for instance, and its ability to take a certain load is not as much as an Eibach spring. And maybe it is a deal of a century because that manufacturer's product that's coming from India or China is actually used by Germans in their production of their vehicles, and it's obviously made under order to a certain specification, fitted to those vehicles and sold to you as a complete product. When in India and China they can say, hey, we can also sell this directly to other individuals that maybe want this product. We can manufacture to the same standard for different vehicles. You don't know. There might be very good product out there, but you are going to be the guinea pig if no one's tried it and you the first. And then an officer comes along and says, "Oh, your car's too low," but you bought it by a legitimate outlet and they fitted it. Professionals. And this is where people get confused. The word professional does not mean someone's good at what they do. It just means they're paid to do it. So never use that argument. Yeah, but professionals did it. It just means they got paid. Didn't mean they did a good job. That's a fact. So you see how that goes. Think it over. You've got my number, it's in the description. Send me a DM, join the group, send a post in there. What is this meant to help us with? How do we do this? Why would we do this? And I'll endeavor to answer there. If I don't, as I said on my status, spam me. If you don't hear from me, I don't even want to know how many unread messages. I'm just scrolling here now. It shows, these days it just shows 99 plus, and I'm happy because when it actually showed the number, it was a number I didn't want to hear. It was a number I didn't want to know at all. So, yeah, that is what it is. But you're more than welcome to contact me directly or in the group. Spam me in the DMs if you want to know more about this info session. I don't know if it will be taking place this year, because it was something has been coming along for a year. Let me just say that. So it's been hard to get all the individuals together. The CEO of the business is always overseas. I don't know the schedule of their operations. So I'm the outsider waiting for a response, but they approached me to say, well, this is the idea, or the individual I've been dealing with, this is the idea that they want to do. So I was like, well, that's your idea. I like it. I can work with it, because then I can start to understand the process for when I start sending cars here for my drag events. Say, go here for your pre-scrutineering so that we can check that your vehicle is not roadworthy, raceworthy. That's all that matters to me. Because yes, safety matters, logical safety. So just to touch on what I want or expected from them was, you come with your boxy, you're going to enter your boxy in 4BR. It's a turbocharged what's a VET? SR20 VET, box Corolla. You go to the station, they check your vehicle for race worthiness, not roadworthiness. And I can try and figure out something there. As a courtesy, we could maybe do that for you and say, to race, the car safe. Roadworthy, you've got these issues. That's for you to sort out at your own time. This is not a roadworthy. So for my stuff as well, it's not a roadworthy. It's just to check that there is no leaks. For rear-wheel drive, there's no leak from your diff, there's no leak from your box, there's no leak at your engine. There's nothing spilling anywhere or dripping anywhere, no coolant coming out of pipe, whatever the case may be. Your suspension components don't have play. Things that scrutineering can't check. So these are going to be done beforehand to get a general idea of the health of your vehicle. That's going to go on record with me, and you'll have a record of that. And then we're going to start doing self-scrutineering. Because we're all grown adults to some degree. Depending on the situation, the circumstance, and the incidents, we're all adults. So you should be able to come to a meet with a safe vehicle. And you wouldn't want anything to happen to you unnecessarily. You wouldn't want anything to happen to a fellow competitor unnecessarily. I'm going to assume you're going to check your vehicle thoroughly, but there's certain things you can't check. You can't put the vehicle on jack stands, lay under it and look. You'd have to lay there for a while and look, because how high are you going to go? Once the vehicle's over a pit, you can stand under And you can get a better idea because you're mobile. You can look here, look there, where the disconnect. Oh, there's a problem from here and there. You can put it on a lift and all those things. And there is a lift there. I'm not saying we can use the lift, but it depends. It's going to be a pre-scrutineering visit. And hopefully that's something that can be done once. It's just to check that your vehicle is safe to go down the strip. The other aspect of that is going to be driver ability, which stems from safety. That's the whole concept here, is around that. So a lot of people have been using that term loosely and using it to sort of set out a narrative, I believe. And we'll see where that leads in terms of what it is that I want out of this partnership. Like I said, I want to get to a point where we just self-scrutiny. I mean, in KZN, they self-scrutiny. And it's nothing but good reviews from all stakeholders, spectators, racers, race operations, ambulance, fire, support staff, providers, caterers. So what is so different here in the Western Cape that we can't do that? Let's use the recent incidents at the track. And I think there were two. One in the morning with a guy dropping oil. I don't know who that was. And then obviously the afternoon with Grant crashing in his 7R. So, what kind of systems and checks were put in place? And I know a couple of guys sent me a message. One guy in particular sent me very good points about the things that they should check, and the things that they should. Murphy's Law, I open up my phone, there's pictures of Grant's car. Forwarded many times. Sheesh. Aina. But what's the maintenance regime for that vehicle? Because the transfer case broke. Now that's not unlikely. It gives me a lot of insight. It means the car is making a lot of power. That's kind of obvious. But what's the maintenance like? A transfer case broke at Mkuze on the weekend as well. That car ended up breaking a world record. So when did it break? Under what conditions did it break? What did they notice? Did they see something? Who was watching this car on the line? Because in the video you can see it break just before the bridge. You can see the smoke bellowing out. And obviously at some point that was where maybe fluid was hitting an exhaust. And the heat is just smoke. With the motion and the airflow, smoke. To eventually where it was a fine line that became a spray just after the finish line. So something was coming loose, and then, if it was a transfer case busy going and it resulted in a catastrophic failure, that's what happened after the finish line. I don't know what the conditions were. I don't know if the driver got out of it, if, he wasn't traveling apparently fast enough. I was like, well, by 8th mile, I'm very sure he is well over 190. I mean, I'm sure they are. In fact, let's go and look. I'm very sure there are draggies which can actually answer that question for us. And as usual, my phone is full. There goes that idea. I mean, with all the other things I need to post, maybe I'll call it a night and go and do the posting. But I'll find that bit of information and post it. So you could be doing that speed very well by half mile. I mean, the bridge is after, 8th mile. The bridge is after 8th mile. And this happened just before, so you would have been under wide open throttle still. Was he aware that the car was smoking? I'm sure it's something you would see in your rear, but you're not looking behind you when you're racing. You're focusing on what's in front of you. So if that happened, at a transfer case, that's not something he's going to notice in that second to 2 seconds. To go from, broken to catastrophic and losing control. It happens so quickly. You're not going to be able to say what it is you would have done differently. You can just hope that your car holds together down that run, but that's where this pre-scrutineering is meant to come in. And then obviously we're going to check your ability. You want to come and race a G80, you most probably not going to be allowed on the facility with that vehicle. Depends. I'm still on the fence about PlayStation cars, as they say, console cars. Very much on the fence about that, because I would much rather see the actual makeup of the car community in Cape Town pitch up and race. You know, the Toyota wet looks, the Toyota bubbles, the Ford Escorts, the Rounders, the Boxies, the Mark 1 Golfs. All those cars with their weird and wonderful conversions. I'd prefer to see that. I'd love to see that, and only that. If you're going to come with a manual 7R or a manual 8R or manual 8 GTI and 7 GTI, if you're going to come with an S3, 8P S3, I'll welcome you. You know, it's not easy to race these high-powered vehicles that are rear-wheel and all-wheel and front-wheel drive, but they are automatic DSG. With all the driver aids in the world, it's not. It does take some skill, but not a lot. You do need to hold the wheel to go straight, fair. And given the power you're pushing through those wheels, it might be a handful, fair. But you don't have to contend with changing a gear, engaging a clutch, disengaging a clutch, shifting, the misshift. You don't have any of that work to do. None of it. You know, even more so if it's a rear-wheel drive car that you're racing. They've got more work to do than you in your rear-wheel drive DSG with driver aids. You know, the vehicle will be set up by your tuner. Shift here, shift here. There may be a bit of a shimmy. If you're going to turn all the driver aids off, we may see what we've seen in recent. I mean, literally mirror for mirror. I need to put those two videos side by side and show you what I mean in terms of how the vehicle's lost control. And how simple things like tire pressure can impact. So those things we can discuss at a later stage. I mean, this info session is, as I've described, it is meant to happen the 19th of October. That is next weekend. We were meant to have our updated meeting on the 23rd of September. I had to cancel that because, or excuse myself, and I said, go ahead with the meeting, send me the minutes. It was very much more for them to establish how they're going to use their facilities and their business premises and how to accommodate, you know, their tenants and the days and the times and all these things. You know, I said what I require can be done during the week, but it needs to be a time session. So when are you most quiet that I can tell people 3 weeks prior to an event, go there and do a scrutineering. You know, this info session is most likely going to be on a Saturday. I doubt a Sunday, but probably a Saturday from, say, 10 till 2 or 3. And I can foresee there being a crowd. Possibly a crowd of people wanting to also hear what is being found on these cars, and maybe they've got a similar problem. So if we can get 2 or 3 guys with similar setups, similar concerns, that'll be even better. We just need to assess one, and we can use that as an example and show everyone. If you've got this, you most likely have this issue. If you've got LEDs, you're most likely going to have this problem. And we can hopefully reach a lot more people with just having the access to the 16 cars. But I'd like to have some feature cars there as well. You know, they're racing, they're competing. Let's put them over the pit and see, would they get a clean bill of health? You know, the car is sorted, it's good to go, it's okay from its current state, but there are concerns. That would be interesting to know. You know, it could give the tuner, the builder, the competitor insight. And I mean, I love vehicles from all walks. So the racers, the ones that compete at robot racing, street strip, and Killarney drags, Sultana, all of those. I want those family individuals. You know, maybe a mom that bought a car and she's been in that situation, bought it, doesn't have a driver's license, but has been driving. license lapses on the car. Takes it to a mechanics, gets screwed over by the mechanics. I'm just spitballing here. To have heard an event, that would be an example. I mean, she's carrying her kids in the vehicle. If there's an accident, if something goes wrong, now she can maybe go with a concern list and go to a mechanic and say, hey, you said you replaced this, but here it's then still an issue. Or you said this wasn't a problem, but here it's being picked up as an issue. From that aspect as well, I hope it provides some insight. So, yeah, think it over. Contact me. We'll see when it's going to occur. Probably not the 19th of October. Possibly November. That's also quite quiet. I doubt December because people are going to be going away. Otherwise, next year. It's something that just came up from their side. They mentioned it to me. They've been sort of sitting and mulling it over and planning it, and whatever the case may be, I've been engaging and asking, if you guys thought this through, what's the plan here? What is it that you want to achieve? And we'll see how that goes. But yeah, thank you for tuning in. I'm going to sign off. I've had a busy week. I think I need to go in a rest. And I will see you tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow morning between 6 and 9. We'll see. Maybe someone can send through an issue that we can check and chat and discuss for a little bit of a morning session. We'll see. I tried something this morning just for laughs, for an exercise. It was interesting. And maybe I'll do it again tomorrow. We don't know. At this stage, I don't know. Depends. I'm going to go and get a good night's sleep now. And I'll see you at 4 o'clock when I wake up. Cheers, guys. Have a good evening. Thank you for tuning in. Please do subscribe, like, and share. And I'll see you again, if not tomorrow morning, tomorrow night.